How's it going, everybody? You clicked on the episode, you heard the stupid intro music. You know what time it is, Trail Tales time. Welcome to episode number 86. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a thru hiker. I am a peak bagger. I am a huge hiking nerd, and every single week on this podcast, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. And this week's guest goes by the name of Kayla. She is a good friend of mine. We both met at Clarkson University, so she's one of the few Trail Tales guests so far that I actually knew outside of hiking before we kind of connected through hiking. Anyways, she hiked the Vermont Long Trail this past June, and as most of you probably know if you listen to this show a lot, I live here in Vermont. I love the Long Trail. I've hiked it a couple times, and it's just amazing, so I was very excited to talk about it. We pretty much just jumped all over the place. It was her first thru hike, so we do spend a decent amount of time talking about that. We also talk quite a bit about what it's like to hike in a group of people. So it was a great episode. I had a lot of fun, and of course at the end, Kayla has a bear story to share, so people love the bear stories. So go listen all the way until the end, please. It was a great chat, and Kayla, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and let's do another one soon. 46 Climbs, folks. If you don't know what 46 Climbs is, it is a charity run by a good friend of mine and his wife, Colby Ziemendorf, also a previous guest of the show. A charity that raises money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and they put like a hiking twist on it. So when you sign up, you get to choose a mountain out there anywhere in the world, and you get to go hike it with the t-shirt and all the swag that they send you after you make your donation. So please go check out 46climbs.com, and if you want to make a donation, be sure to do it under the Kyle Hates Hiking team. That's where we're pooling all the money from the Trail Tales listeners and the viewers from my YouTube channel. So I will have a link to that in the show notes. Please go check out the Kyle Hates Hiking team for 46 Climbs. That would be much appreciated. Also, go follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, at Kyle Hates Hiking. And speaking of my YouTube channel, go check that out as well if you haven't. It's Kyle Hates Hiking on YouTube. So with that said, the last thing I need to say, and arguably the most important thing, well, I guess it's all pretty important, but this is certainly no exception. I need to thank this week's sponsor, Sawyer Products, and I could go on and on and on about their amazing water filters and their amazing insect repellent, but you guys already know about that stuff. Let's be honest, Sawyer is a staple in the backpacking community. Pretty much everybody knows them, and pretty much everybody knows how amazing their products are. So instead, I'm going to tell you about some of the work that Sawyer is doing to help the environment, because you know what? We all care about the environment listening to this podcast. We all cherish the outdoors and want to help protect it, and Sawyer feels the exact same way. So that's the thing with some of these companies that make the gear. You might think, oh, their process might pollute or be bad for the environment or whatever. That's not the case with Sawyer at all, and in fact, this actually ties in with their amazing charity work they're doing, which you might have heard me talk about on previous episodes. But for instance, Sawyer has distributed over 1 million water filters to over 80 countries. That's crazy, 1 million filters. And they've been able to provide clean water to millions of people around the world, which is so amazing. And that sounds great on the surface, right? They're helping people, but one thing that I actually didn't really think about until I started researching for this read I'm doing right now is that the use of Sawyer's filters actually reduces the amount of wood and fuel that's required to make water potable, and up to 478 trees can be saved per year in developing countries where they have to boil their water to make it clean, without the use of Sawyer's filters. So again, that's like something I never really thought about, but I think that's pretty cool, because not only are they giving people an easy way to have clean water, but they're actually saving a lot of trees and helping the environment and the atmosphere in the process, which is really, really awesome. And another thing to think about too is that during natural disasters in a lot of developing countries, they have to ship in huge pallets of bottled water for everybody. And in using Sawyer's filters, first of all, okay, let's just break this down. All right, plastic single-use bottles, they're not going to need as many of those because they can use the filters to get clean water instead. And it goes beyond that as well because that means they're not going to need as much fuel to ship in all that really, really heavy water. As all you backpackers know, water is very, very heavy. And they can either save that fuel or they can use that to ship in other essential items for these natural disasters. So again, stuff I didn't really think about, but it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's really, really cool. And then another really great way that Sawyer is helping to reduce their environmental impact is by using something called a BOV on their insect repellent sprays. So again, I didn't really know anything about this until I was doing research for this ad read, but a BOV is something called a bag on valve, and they use compressed air instead of propellants to disperse the spray so you can be safe from mosquitoes and ticks and all that stuff. So huge thanks to Sawyer for sponsoring this episode. I feel like every time I do one of these ads for them, I learn more and more about just all the amazing work they're doing beyond just selling really, really awesome products to hikers. So yeah, thank you so much, Sawyer. Thank you to Travis and Andrew over there for continuing to hook it up. Go check out Sawyer.com. And with that said, let's get into the episode number 86, I think, with, Kayla, Long Trail Class of 2020. All right, here we go. Episode number 86 of Trail Tales. Before I bring in my guest, well, she's already here. Hi, Kayla. But
hey.
before I actually let my guest talk, I just want to say real quick to everybody listening who've donated to my 46 climbs team. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I know Kayla does 46 climbs, like she gets it. So I don't feel bad about it. But to everybody that's donated to the Kyle Hates Hiking 46 climbs team, holy shit, you guys are freaking killing it. We went from having absolutely $0 because I just launched it like a few days ago as of the time of this recording to being the number one fundraising team. Just in a couple days, it's so amazing. So thank you so much to everybody who donated. I wanted to get this in for everybody that skips the introductions to hear too. So anyways, thank you guys. Kayla, what's up?
Not much. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Kayla, so for everybody listening, Kayla and I have known each other for a number of years now. We went to Clarkson together. That's how we met. And I feel like, I don't know, we've never hiked together, but we've always kind of kept in touch with various hiking stuff. And Kayla recently hiked the Long Trail, which I am very excited to talk about because I love the Long Trail, obviously. And that's my home trail quote or whatever. And it's been a long time since the Long Trail has been talked about on this show. So I'm just really excited for that. So Kayla, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you just go ahead and just introduce yourself beyond the Long Trail, talk about what you've hiked, and just explain who you are.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm stoked to be on here. Thanks for inviting me on. It's my first time doing a podcast. So
Hey.
I'm pretty excited. I'm Kayla. I have been hiking for a couple of years now. I mostly hike in the Adirondacks. And I guess I started out just peak bagging. That's my main thing. And I love it. And the Long Trail was my first through hike that I've ever done. So that was kind of a big deal. It was definitely a big learning curve, but it went well, I would say. But when besides the Long Trail, I mostly just peak bag in the Adirondacks and the White Mountains in Maine and Vermont. I'm big into just hiking with friends and kicking it and having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
I like to do long hikes once a year, some type of ultra to push myself. But other than that, I mostly just peak bag for fun. I finished my 46 a couple years ago in the Adirondacks. I'm working on the New Hampshire 48. Eventually I'll get up to the Northeast 115, but that's a process. We're not in any rush for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what I do, hiking wise.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of funny you bring up the Northeast 115. I was talking about this with my my hiking partner Flossie the other day, and I'm 5 peaks away from finishing it, and I have been since August of last year for a whole year now, and I just haven't What's
the rush?
Yeah, I know, but it's I feel like I'm so close, and I worked so hard to get there over the last number of years. But for some reason, not for some reason, I know exactly why. It's because the 5 left are up in northern Maine, and I just Like, it's just so hard to get up there, and I'm just like, why go up there when I could just do something in the whites instead or something like that? So I don't know. Another thing
you'll know when it's time.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be an excuse to travel back to the Northeast once I move away from here, whenever the hell that is. Another funny thing that just popped into my head there, which I completely forgot about for like a long time, is, do you remember that time you were parked at Crawford Notch, like about to start a hike, and then just completely coincidentally, I just like drove by you and I was like, oh my God, that's freaking Kayla right there.
I do remember that. Yeah, that was after a miserable hike too. My friend and I were like really bumming it in the whites for like 2.5 weeks, just like living out of our cars. And we hiked like the Willie Range, and I think it rained the whole time. Like it wasn't miserable. It was a lot of fun.
That's a tough part of the whites too. I mean,
I mean, if I'm gonna hike in the rain, at least it was a couple of mountains that don't really have views anyway. Like I didn't really miss out on anything. It was a good time. We laughed a lot, but we were definitely like, when you drove by, we were drying out all of our shit. We had like our hammocks out. We were like drying everything out next to the highway, like a couple of dirt bags. It was pretty funny. And you drove by and it was like, of course.
I thought that was so funny because it was just like one of those small world things. And I wasn't even there to hike either. It's just like, what are the odds that like two people that don't live there, like two people that live like pretty far away from there, would just like happen to be there at the same exact time? Because I was driving through on my way over to Sebago Lake in Maine just for like a little vacation. And I think I had maybe seen on like Instagram, like I knew you were around, and then I saw your like the old CRV or is that what the thing is?
Yes, my dirtbag mobile. I love that car.
I saw that and I was like, oh, that's Kayla. And I like tried to roll down the window real quick, and I don't think you heard me, but that was kind of funny.
Not at all. That is super funny.
Damn, that was a long time ago too. That was like back in 2017,
like
I think.
3 years ago.
Like our senior year of college. Yeah, that's crazy. But let's talk about the Long Trail. So. Yeah, I guess I think the place I want to start here, for everybody listening, I think it was just like a week or two before you left for the trail, Kayla. We like met up and, you know, you were just asking some questions about it or whatever, just kind of shooting the shit about the Long Trail, any last minute advice or whatever. And honestly, to me, it sounded like you were pretty set. Like, honestly, I feel like there really wasn't that much I could help you with, because everything you said, like, I was like, yeah, like you're pretty spot on with that. So I guess what were your like expectations going into it, and how do you think you kind of like fared up against those?
Yeah, well, I think that this year was a really weird year to do the Long Trail because of COVID. Like the trail had just opened after being closed for a long time, and we like honestly didn't really know what it was going to be like at all. Like I think normally you go in and you expect to figure some things out, but you expect to meet people and kind of like be able to ask people on the trail questions and figure it out as you go. And we didn't really have that opportunity. We had to be really planned out and really intentional before we even set foot on the trail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like expectations as far as that went, we were just like, kind of just like figuring it out. Yeah, like there was no one that could really tell us what to expect that year or this year. So, I mean, as far as like, we definitely had to do things differently because of COVID. We had to like, we kind of didn't know what the deal was with hitchhiking, and we were also in a group of 4. There were 4 of us. So yeah, like just hitchhiking in general with a group of 4 is a little sketchy. And then on top of that, COVID, it's like, who's going to pick up 4 hikers? So yeah, it was like definitely interesting. That said though, I think like expectations, like obviously the trail like is pretty transforming and a pretty like cool experience. Like any through hike for anything more than like a couple days is you're going to come out of it a little bit different than you went into it. And it was awesome. Like definitely things were different, and because it was different, like I think the experience was a little bit more like personal. It was less of a social experience. Like through hiking a lot of time is like seeing other through hikers and doing like hikes together. And we didn't really have as much of that of an opportunity as that, but we were already a group of 4. So it was a lot of like hiking with yourself and like figuring things out on like a very personal level. And that was special in its own way too.
Yeah, definitely. How do you think, actually, sorry, before I get too far ahead of myself here, I should have said this before the last question. Like just details about like the hike, like what direction you went, like what time of year, like how long it took and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we did it northbound. We started like June 4th or something, and we took our sweet time. It was awesome.
Has it already been
Um
like a couple months? Damn, I feel like it was.
yeah,
I feel like it was just like
crazy.
the other day that we were sitting there like talking about it.
I know. I can't believe it's been that long. I mean, yeah, I don't even know what I've done with my life since getting off the trail. Yeah, but we took 27 days. And the group of us, we all started out at like completely different like hiking abilities, like different like backpacking, like experience levels. It was all of our first through hike, so we all had that common.
Hmm.
And then we just kind of like took our time. We weren't really we were all kind of like we didn't have a work schedule that we had to get back by. We all just like were really open schedule wise, so we just like yeah hung out and like took our time and did some like awesome chilling. So yeah, it took us 27 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool to hear because like a lot of the time, most of the time, I would even say like people who come on the show, and I kind of fall into this category as well. Like there are people that are just like freaking killing the miles, and that's totally fine too. But I feel like there's a lot of people that listen and consume this kind of content, especially first timers. Like as far as like a through hike goes, because it's not like you were an inexperienced hiker before this, but a first through hike it's still going to be a first through hike regardless of how many miles you've done before it. So I don't know. I think that's kind of cool that you guys like kind of took it in a little bit, and I also like know that trail so well too. There's like so many spots that I kind of want to go back to and just like chill at. So
Yeah.
that's cool to hear. How was it hiking in a group of four people? Because I've hiked in groups with four people before, but it was like on the AT where we all kind of met up along the way, so we already just kind of we basically naturally like fell into place. But when you're starting with people like that, that's a little bit different, and sometimes that can be challenging. I know we did talk about this a little bit when we met up or whatever, but yeah, how was hiking with a group of four people?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think that's probably the most like dynamic part of the trip, and like the biggest learning curve of the trip was like learning to hike with four people. The friends that I hiked with, we were already really good friends before we even got on the trail, and we all met. We worked as wilderness therapy guides at a company in Vermont, so we all met like living in the woods together, and like that's how we became friends. That's how we connected. So I think that was definitely an advantage. Like we knew that we all were comfortable living in the woods.
Yeah.
That said, we were all like very different people. And going into it, like we did have to work out a lot of stuff. And like kind of like learn each other's like ins and outs because you're spending 24/7 together. I mean, we
Oh
hiked
yeah.
alone a lot of the time, but at the end of the day, like it's through hiking, you learn things about each other that you never knew, like no matter how long you were friends for. But that said, like although we had to work things out, we like I consider the people that I hiked the trail with to be like some of my best friends. So we definitely came out of it like with this really, really strong bond. That's like really special. Like I'll always be able to like go back to those people and like have
Mm-hmm.
that experience with them,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool. Yeah, there's definitely parts of hiking with a group. Like we went into the hike kind of like really aware and like having open conversation that we were not always going to be happy with each other. Like
That's
we weren't
smart.
always,
That's really, it's
yeah.
honestly because I feel like I just hear stories about people who go into a hike like this with a group of people, or even just two people, honestly, like just two friends or whatever, like, and they don't work out those kinks beforehand, or at least they don't anticipate like some sort of, they just think it's going to be fine. And they quickly realize that actually it's not always going to be fine. There's going to have to be some compromise. So it sounds like you guys
Yeah.
worked that out before, or not worked out the compromises, but at least acknowledge that there's going to be some sort of conflict
Yes.
before. That's really smart. That is a great piece of advice.
Yeah, we definitely set the expectation. Like we all had we had like before we got on the trail, we all sat together um several different opportunities and we were like, hey, like we're going to fight, like we are going to hate each other's guts at times, and that does not mean that we're bad people or that we don't want to be friends anymore. Like we just need to go in knowing that there's going to be moments where we don't like each other, and that's okay because we're human. And being on the trail, like it kind of brings out like the worst parts of you at times. It's
Oh yeah,
hard.
it definitely does.
So yeah, it was definitely important to like talk about that before anything happened. That said, I mean, it wasn't easy when we had moments of conflict, but also we worked them out. And like, I think that at the end of the day, if you're able to like have empathy for other people and you're able to go in and be like, this is not about me, like, this is not just my experience, like, this is about like obviously I need to like take care of myself and like do what I need to do to be okay, but also like I'm not trying to be here and like make this like Kayla's long trail hike. Like no, we're doing this
Hmm.
as a group. Like this is our long trail hike and we all have to be down to like communicate and compromise. So I think that we crushed it. Because we had those conversations and because we kind of like went in with that mindset. That said, like it's definitely something that you have to be like careful with. Like you have to be careful about who you get on the trail with. You have to be careful about like what those people need and like how they deal with stress and like how you deal with stress in the moment. And like you just have to be self-aware or like at least talk about it. I think the biggest thing that helped and actually brought me closer with all of my friends was like being able to talk about the things that we were frustrated with and like being able to be like if someone said something that upset me or like pissed me off like or whatever because I'm kind of a sensitive person, I'll be honest. Like people say things and I take it really personally. Like being able to bring that up with my friends and be like, hey, like this is how I experienced that. Like that made all the difference because it didn't like fester, like didn't make it bigger than it was. Like we were just able to be like, oh, like that's not what I meant by it, and then be
Hmm.
like, cool, move on. But just like actually talking about those things rather than just like hiking alone and thinking about it in your head and just like mad hiking. Like it's just better to talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So another thing that we talked about, kind of on this subject, it's kind of like coming back to me as I hear you talk now. Is I think I had like I don't know, not warned you, but I had said something like, "Hey, if some of your friends quit, like, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna keep going or whatever?" Um, so I guess did you guys end up talking about like what the plan was gonna be if somebody like bailed or if a lot of people bailed? Like, I guess even just for you personally, Kayla, do you think you would have kept going if your friends had decided to, drop out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I definitely would have. Yeah, like with a group of very different people, we definitely were at different levels of how stoked we were about the trail. Like, I'm pretty used to pushing my body and like I've already learned how to stay present on the trail versus like always thinking about when you're going to get to the next site or always thinking about like how many
Yeah,
miles you have
yeah,
left. That's definitely something like a skill you practice over time and learn.
100%.
Um, yeah, and I think like for me, I was kind of like already there. Like I already had some like mental game strategies to do it, and then some of my other friends like struggled with that a little bit more. So I think like we all had different levels of stoke. We all had like different levels of like, oh, am I gonna finish this? Am I not? Like for me, I never really doubted whether or not I would finish it. I just like kind of knew it was gonna happen. Like you take it one day at a time.
Yeah,
I mean, minus injuries or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas like other people in the group really weren't sure, and that's like fine. I think that's like like I've definitely experienced that on other trips, like previous hiking trips. So I like definitely knew that I was gonna finish, and we definitely had conversations of like, hey, like I'm struck. Like my other friends were really awesome about being transparent that they were struggling. Like it was really cool to be able to have those conversations where they would be really open and like brave about how they were feeling and like they'd be honest. They'd be like, I might not want to hike anymore. Like I might want to quit.
Yeah.
And we were kind of able to like talk about it as a group, like, and I mean, motivate each other, like without being, without like with like taking into consideration like it's okay to not finish. Like everyone has different hikes, like everyone like experiences it differently. So like if people wanted to quit, like that wouldn't have been to the end of the world, but we were able to like support each other in that. Yeah, and like one of my friends actually did get injured on the trail and couldn't finish. She's
Oh
definitely going to
no.
go back at some point, but yeah, that was definitely like a turning point. It was right halfway on the trip and
Oh, so she made it like a good bit of the way there too.
yeah, it was like it really sucked. It was like right around Middlebury, I think.
Hmm.
And she twisted her ankle really badly and couldn't finish. And that kind of like changed the whole dynamic. Like once you lose like an integral part of your group member, like it really sucked. Like it was really hard. It was definitely like a bummer. And it was like we had to like relearn like I don't know, it was just like less fun after that. Because just like losing someone sucks.
Yeah.
So that kind of did happen. And in that moment, like we all kind of reevaluated. It was like, okay, like we're not like we started out as like a group of four. Like now are we gonna finish as a group of three or like how is this gonna go? So it is like something that we had to like work through. Yeah, and like on the trail, like we weren't 100% sure that we were gonna finish at different times. Like there were moments when like every person in my group were like, I might quit. And like
Yeah.
that's honestly okay. Like I think there's a lot of shame around like through hiking and being like you have to finish, like I don't know, and just like a lot of like competition around that and like feeling lesser than if you're struggling more than someone else. But that said, like it's like your own hike, and like if you hike a quarter of the long trail or half the long trail and you get like something out of it, then like that's fine. Like you
Oh
don't
yeah.
have to finish the whole thing.
Oh
So
yeah. And it's a freaking hard trail too. Like I've probably said this on previous episodes a long time ago when I've talked about this trail, but the long trail is hard. Like I it's harder than most of the AT, honestly. Like it's, even though it's like significantly shorter than like the AT or the PCT or something, I've heard people say that like just in terms of like mentally how challenging it is, like people like it's a hard trail.
kicks your ass for sure.
And honestly, Kayla, like you might have even heard other people say this too. Like I feel like if you can hike the long trail, you can definitely hike like the AT or another trail that's like way longer even. I mean, I'm kind of like proof of that, obviously, because that's what I did. I hiked the long trail before I did the AT, and like I don't know, so I commend you guys for that. Like it's a tough trail. You guys crushed it.
Yeah, thanks.
One thing I think I should probably go back to, because we kind of touched on this a little bit and then I got us sidetracked. The resupplies. So what, with COVID and everything, what did you guys end up doing like for your resupply strategy?
Yeah, so the resupplies were complicated, I'll be honest. Like this was the hardest part of the
I
whole
was gonna say,
thing.
I think I remember you talking about it and it sounded complicated.
Yeah, so we were extremely lucky because we were local. We lived in like I lived in Waitsfield at the time. We had friends like pretty much like out of the middle of the state. So going anywhere like wasn't too crazy versus living like really up high up north or down
Yeah,
south.
yeah.
And we had a lot of friends who had the time. So we were so lucky. Like again, so many thanks to all of our friends who helped make it happen. But what we had to do is we basically had to ask people for help and ask people to drive to us and like meet us at certain times. We had to plan kind of like a strict itinerary because of that, which I mean, I know we talked about this when we chatted before I hiked the trail. Like you were like, it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, on one hand, like, yeah, it was challenging
But I
to
mean,
have
this is like,
that.
what else are you gonna do, you know?
Exactly. But on the other hand, like that's just like that was what we needed to do. So we like reached out to friends. We got friends to yeah, pretty much be like, yeah, we'll drive this to you on this day. We planned our itinerary around that, and then we did all of our food shopping beforehand, and that was hard.
Yeah,
We had to
oh
figure
my
out
God.
what we were going to eat the whole time. And if anyone hikes, like we all know that like you just get weird cravings out there and you don't know what you're going to want a month down
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
road.
that's so hard to do, honestly.
Yes, that was really challenging.
What
But
did you
pretty
get?
much
What did you get sick of the most?
oh my gosh. Where do I start? I got really sick of like those like RX bars. They're like
Yeah,
these like
yeah.
those are disgusting.
Oh,
I'm
you
never
must
gonna
have
eat
spent so
those
much money on
again.
those, like buying an entire through hikes worth of
Yeah, I still have a
RX
box.
bars.
I'm still working on a box.
They're really tasty. I actually like those a lot, but those are very pricey.
Not anymore. Yeah, those were tough. And then also just the random snacks we got. Like we made some mistakes where we like packaged things into baggies. So like I was like, I know I'm gonna crave Doritos. Like I just know it's gonna happen. But I like made the mistake of buying like a big bag and then putting them in smaller bags so they were stale when I got them. And that
Oh,
was the most disappointing thing ever.
oh man, there's a pro tip for you. Don't
Yeah,
repackage your Doritos in advance.
don't do that. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. If you're gonna buy snacks ahead of time and ship it to you, then like leave them packaged in the original
Did you still
package.
eat them though?
I don't remember. I think I ate most of them. I mean, you had to. You had
It's
them.
like, what other choice do you have?
So we just like did all of our grocery shopping beforehand. We like kind of had to guesstimate. We definitely overbought. I mean, it was better to overbuy than to underbuy. And we just like bought a ton of stuff, and then whatever we didn't like we would meet our friends at that time. They'd bring all the stuff, and then whatever we didn't want, we'd like send back with them. And that worked out pretty well. Since we overpacked, we were kind of able to be like, oh, I can't eat any more of these
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
whatever.
Did
Like switch it up a little bit.
did you get a chance to like eat real food at all? Because that's like in a normal year, like you'd be able to, you know, not only have the convenience of just buying food as you go, but you'd also be able to like go into town and like get some real food at like a restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's like another
Yeah.
big thing that you're missing out on, potentially. So did you get a chance to do that? Like, did your friends like actually bring you guys into town at all?
Yeah, so that's something we had to problem solve like mid-trip. So we actually went the first 2 weeks. without leaving the woods at all.
That's
Was like
crazy.
only
That's
yeah, we
tough.
had
That's tough, Kayla.
yes, it was really hard. And I mean, it was like I'm glad that I did it to be like I did that, but it was a grind. Like I think by the end of those 2 weeks, I was like, I need a break. Like I just like don't
Yeah,
really want
for
to be in the
sure.
woods right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so like the first 2 weeks it was like hard. We did our resupplies. We ate the same food for 2 weeks. It was like not ideal. And like
Eating
I
hiker food
think
for 2 weeks straight. Oh man, that's
yeah,
tough.
and like not leaving the woods too. Like
Yeah, true.
we only saw hikers. Like we were hiking at a pretty slow pace, so a lot of hikers were passing us. But we were also like we didn't really meet that many new people, or like didn't really have too many people to chill with. And I think at the time there wasn't a lot of people on the trail because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like it was like really quiet. I mean, it was really nice to have shelters to ourselves a lot of nights.
That's
And
pretty.
be
Yeah,
able
that's kind of unique. Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, not that June is the most especially early June, the most popular time to hike, here.
yeah.
But still, like I would not expect to have shelters to myself very often. So interesting.
Yeah, that was really special, especially some really beautiful ones. Yeah, but yeah, 2 weeks was like hard. And then the second half of the trip, we learned from that experience. We were like, we did that. We never need to do that again. And then we like planned more things. So like we planned people to come meet us and hike with us to like kind of switch up the dynamic. So it felt
Mm-hmm.
like less of a grind.
Yeah.
Just like have new people to bring in and beer and whatever. And then we also had like a friend bring us to a hotel, and yeah, we got like like had people bring us to restaurants. The calorie situation was kind of weird because of that. I think a lot of thru hikers like pack light food and then just like calorie load when they get to town.
Yep. That's what I did.
And yeah, and that was like definitely something we weren't really able to do. So that was weird. We had enough calories. It was just whether or not we wanted to eat the food that we had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like I like after hiking those 2 weeks, there's like certain foods that I'm like, that's what I crave. It was ginger ale and Doritos were like the two things that I was like, that's my through hiking food. Like everybody has their thing, and those were mine.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's good that it's something, or at least one of them is something you can carry with you, though. Like you can carry Doritos.
Oh, I did.
It's not like
Yeah.
stale Doritos, but it's not like me where it's like always a cheeseburger and it's like I can't fucking carry a cheeseburger
that
with
too,
me.
Yeah. We had one day in town, I was just like, I'm gonna eat a whole pizza by myself
Did
because
you do it?
I can. I did, of
Nice.
course.
That's like a
Is that
thru hiker rite of
question?
passage, I feel like.
It is. Yeah,
That's
there was
awesome.
that was definitely one of the cravings.
Where?
But
Which pizza place?
it was in Waitsfield. So I lived in Waitsfield, so we were able to literally hike to my town, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's actually really
the
cool.
show
You were
goes
able
right
to
through
like
that.
go home in the middle of your thru hike.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was like, and it was so great. Like we got to go home. I think I got like pizza and a burger and like all these things because it was the end of the 2 weeks too. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
that was like, yeah,
Oh,
we
you
went
must
hard.
have been so fucking hungry. I can't even
Yes.
imagine. I get hungry after like 2 days out there.
Oh,
Like,
for
oh my
sure.
god, I can't even imagine 2 weeks. Holy shit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it was cool because we got to like all of our friends in town, like they got to come hang out with us. We like had kind of like a river party. It was great. And that was really special. But yeah, that was like definitely like a turning point because we were like, we're gonna do things a little bit differently now.
Okay, yeah. So what did you? Okay, well, I guess besides I don't know. Yeah, great job, Kyle. What did you do differently after that? Oh man, Patrick, you can leave all that in. The world needs to know how stupid I sound during these sometimes. Yeah. What did you guys do differently after that?
Yeah, so specifically we planned like breaks. So we planned to have like nights in a hotel to do laundry, to get clean, to like have that reset, and also go into town and get food that wasn't trail food, like get burgers and whatever. And then we also just like planned more people to visit. So like we just like invited more friends. We were like, hey, we need you guys for our morale. You got to come.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just packed food differently. Like we knew what we were craving at that point. So when we had our food drops, we were able to go and like put different food in our food drops. I was like, I need more chips and more cookies and more soda. And yeah, that's what I brought differently.
Nice.
My other friends were like, oh, we need more fresh fruit. And I was like, oh, Doritos.
Doritos aren't a
yeah.
fruit.
Yeah, right. It's like a through hiking vegetable equivalent, pretty much, I think.
It literally is. I had a lot of Doritos on the AT as well.
Yeah, for sure. So that's mostly what we did differently. And we also I think we also like 2 weeks also the power situation was weird. Like we had to save our battery a lot during
Oh
those two
yeah,
weeks.
I didn't
So
even think about that. Yeah,
yeah,
shit.
so there was like no music. Yeah, and I'm someone that actually really struggled to hike alone before this trip. Like that's something that the long trail taught me was like how to be okay hiking alone. Like I would always get in my head or like hike just like my pacing was off and I just like never had fun hiking alone.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean 2 weeks without music or anything and like we would hike different paces. It was like a lot of hiking alone. And you get bored. Like you're just yeah, for like 14 days straight, there's like yeah, I think that was something that was hard. I'm really, really glad I did it because now I can crush miles alone a lot easier than I could before. So I kind of like, yeah, had to go through it for a little bit. But the second half, we also made sure that we could listen to music and podcasts because that's a huge morale booster. Just like
Oh
makes your
yeah.
day go by so much faster.
Oh
It's
yeah.
so much better. And like, yeah, you just like feel like you're a part of the world again, which was really nice. There was definitely like a lot of FOMO like being on the trail and like feeling guilty about checking my Instagram and stuff like that.
Oh, cell service. How is cell service? Because I feel like this is something we talked about too. And if I recall correctly, I think I told you that you would pretty much have it at least a couple times every day, not consistently probably, but you would still be able to get it most days. Was that accurate?
I would say there was only like 3 days where I struggled to find cell service. I mean, it's definitely like
It's spotty.
it's spotty, but if you're up on a ridge, which so much of the long trail is up on a ridge that it wasn't too bad. But yeah, like if I was up on a ridge, I would check, and then a lot of shelters didn't have it. So like if you were down lower,
Yeah.
that was definitely sketchy. So like yeah, I'd say like we only had service like maybe 1 out of 3 nights per shelter, but then as soon as you were up on a ridge, it was like full bars, so it
Yep.
wasn't bad. So you could do what you needed to do. Like I was looking for housing for grad school and like doing like all these grad school things, and I would like not have service at the shelter so that I'd like go hike on a ridge and then like post up for like an hour and like do stuff while I had service and then like go back down to no service. Which is, I mean, it's good to not have service too. Like it
Oh yeah.
forces you to stay present and like bond with people. So I'm kind of glad that that was a thing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like you want to balance because in your case, especially if you're trying to coordinate like, food drops and shit like that, you gotta have some service, obviously. So
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. You just have to know when to check for it,
yeah, yeah.
which is like anytime you're up high.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. That's just usually the rule anywhere here in the Northeast, at least, and I guess the whole AT in my experience as well. How did hiking a lot in the Adirondacks like prepare you for this? Because that was one thing. Like, I feel like I was just talking about how hard this trail is a few minutes ago, but the Adirondacks are really hard too. So I feel like for most people coming into the long trail, it's going to be harder than they're used to. But for you, again, just purely in terms of the actual hiking, so not the through hiking aspects, but just the actual hiking. Yeah, do you think the Adirondacks prepared you pretty well for that?
Yeah, the Adirondacks are definitely killer. I mean, when you're talking about trail maintenance and like trail conditions and like terrain and like elevation gain and loss, like the Adirondacks are like really challenging.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's like kind of where I learned to hike. Like that's where I got my hiking legs. That's where I fell in love with it, and that's kind of what I love. Like I kind of love that type 2 fun and like the feeling of like, oh man, I have to hike this now. And like that like weird like, all right, I guess we're gonna do it, like that. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
love
Oh
that.
yeah. Trust me, all the people listening get it too.
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely prepared me really well. Like don't get me wrong, the long trail definitely was hard and I definitely was like very tired at a lot of times, but I was never like I never felt like it was I was in over my head. Like I felt like the Adirondacks like are so brutal at times, especially with the mud and the trail conditions and just like sheer like trail erosion. I wasn't there. You're barely dealing with any of that on the long trail. In fact, like when I got to that kind of terrain, I got really excited. So I was like, yes, it's like this is so familiar. This is so hard.
That's good to hear. Oh man, Kayla, someday when you get down to like the AT, like southern part of the AT, it's gonna be a fucking breeze for you. I'm telling you, like you've hiked like all the hardest shit. I feel like already, like
That's
crazy.
awesome. That's good to hear.
Like, cause for me, like I remember when I was starting in Georgia, like I mean, obviously, like people probably say that Georgia is harder than it actually is a lot of the time just because that's where they're starting and they're not in shape yet and shit. And a lot of people, it's their
Yeah,
first time hiking and
totally.
stuff. But people like just talk about how difficult Georgia is. And like even people I was hiking with, like, oh my God, Georgia's so tough. And I came down there, you know, used to the Long Trail and the Adirondacks and the Whites and stuff. So I was like, it's actually, like, it's not easy, but it's not like that. It's like really not that hard. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
just think
right.
that's funny.
Yeah. I think like the thing about the long trail, like it wasn't the trail that was hard for me. It was more just like a lot of ups and downs that are challenging. It's like, you know, you look at the map and you're like, oh, this like doesn't look hard at all. And then you actually start hiking and there's like actually a lot of like really pointless, like really steep ups and
Oh
downs.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And that was like the hardest part of the long trail.
There's
But
very
in
few like
comparison,
sections of that trail that are just like flat, you know. You're pretty much
yeah.
always, even if it's not that steep, you're still always like climbing or descending something for sure.
Exactly. It's like flat land is pretty much non-existent.
Yep.
But I mean, the Adirondacks pretty much teach you a pretty badass mental game, and like that's what I brought in. Like that's what I came into the long trail with. Like the mental game that you learn in the Adirondacks is like so good because you're just like so in like out there and in it, and like you end the day just feeling so exhausted every time that like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's like something that it definitely set me up for success to hike the long trail.
Definitely. Definitely. What were some of the high points and low points on the trail? And that's a very open-ended question, so take that however you will.
Yeah, totally. I mean the low point's easy. That was when my friend got hurt and had to
Okay.
leave. Like
That
that
makes sense.
sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like when it happened, like we kind of knew immediately that she was gonna have to leave. We like kind of like all like kind of went into like, okay, like we're gonna get you evac and like we're gonna figure this out. That was like really disheartening. We hiked, I can remember the shelter we stayed at. Oh, actually, what is it called? It's like Skylight. No, it's Skylight Lodge.
Yep.
So yeah,
Skyline?
we
Is it
like
Skylight or Skyline? I can't remember.
maybe it's
I
Skyline.
don't
It's
remember.
one of the. It's
It doesn't
similar.
matter anyways.
Yeah, but we after she left, we like finished our day, and I remember just like hiking and being so sad and angry and like anxious and bummed and being like, "What the hell are we gonna do now without her?" She was like such a balancing factor in our group.
Mm-hmm.
And I like got to the shelter, and my friend was Brian was like already there, like chilling, and I like threw down my pack and I threw my hiking poles, and I was like, "I just want to cry, like this sucks." And then my other friend Belle came, and she was like having a hard time and she started crying and Ryan was like trying to like help us both. He was like, "Oh my God, like what do you guys need?" And then he like we started making dinner and he like sliced his finger open and then he started
Oh
crying
God.
and we were all we were all an emotional mess.
Oh
So
man.
yeah, it's like funny to laugh at now, but that was like definitely
That's tough.
the biggest low point for sure.
That's tough. And by the way, you were right, it is Skylight. I corrected
Oh,
you
okay.
incorrectly.
Cool.
Just for the record.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so that was the hardest part. It's like funny to like think back on that day and be like, yeah, we were a mess.
What about high
But
point?
that was the low. The high point, it's hard because there were so many good ones.
Or how about this? This might be a little bit easier. Just like a spot that you remember very fondly, like one of your favorite spots on the trail, like
Yeah.
whether it's the actual spot itself or just like a good memory from a spot, like just anything like that.
I just thought of one. So it was when we got to Little Rock Pond. We like rolled into Little Rock Pond and it was when it was still a group of four and there was absolutely no one there.
Oh,
And I
nice.
think like yeah, that shelter is usually really popular.
Yeah, and
Like
there's
a lot of
usually
people
a
go there.
caretaker too. That there was a caretaker when I stayed there on my
Yeah,
hike.
there were caretakers coming around to take care of the like lats and stuff, but or the outhouses, but there's no like caretaker living there. So it was just the group of the four of us and it was a beautiful day. So we like rolled into camp and it started raining as soon as we got there and then it rained until about like 9 a.m. the next day and we ended up taking a 0 day there. And if you've never been there, pretty much the Little Rock Pond situation is there's this like beautiful shelter with like a picnic table that's like all inside and then there's like a few yards away like this huge pond that you can swim in that's like amazing. So we spent the entire day like first of all we woke up dry and didn't have to hike
Yeah.
when it was raining outside and then we spent the whole day just like swimming and like yeah like there was no one around so like no one had to wear clothes. It was amazing. We just like we just like sunbathed and swam and like ate food. We packed in s'mores that day, so we just like had s'mores all day and just had a fire going. And that was just like one of those memories that I like. That day was such a good day when you can just like swim and like feel clean, and just like hang out with your friends and like just like feel really present and grateful and like so happy that you're there. Like that was definitely a high. And then I think my other favorite parts of the trail were when we had people hike with us, like when we had friends come with us, because we had like, when you're hiking with a group, like no matter what kind of group it is, whether you come in together or you meet on the trail, you like kind of form your own group culture, and like
Oh
you have
yeah.
like weird inside jokes, weird things you do, like you laugh at dumb shit, like
Oh yeah.
yeah, there's like it's just like a lot of weirdness that happens, and then people like come into it and they're like, what? So there was like people that we were friends with before, they knew all of us, and then they would like come in to our group for a couple of days to hike with us, and we kind of had to like explain a lot of things to them, but we ended up like forming a whole new like weird situation with like those people, and like getting them in the inside jokes, and they would like add to it, and then like they would leave and we would still like have all this like funny stuff to talk about. So
That's
that was
awesome.
definitely like an awesome part of it. Yeah, just like having like homies come in and out and like make your day. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And if anyone that through hikes who's going to visit through hikers, like they always hook you up. So every time they would like hook us up with like food and yeah, just like donuts and beer and like all the good stuff.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they would carry all the weight too. That was
That's
awesome.
always awesome for
So yeah,
sure.
I have really good friends.
Did you stay at Puffer?
Yeah, Puffer was okay. My Puffer experience was interesting,
Okay,
to be
okay. Did I?
honest.
I'm sure I told you to stay there before, right? Because
No, it was
I tell like
beautiful.
everybody to stay there. Honestly.
It was an amazing shelter. But we got there in the middle of a heat wave when it was like the height of the
Oh yeah,
bugs.
I was gonna say like, cause freaking this entire summer, honestly, has been brutal. And I remember, during some of those hot days when I knew you were out there too, I was like, oh fuck, that sucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, hiking in the heat is just like, oh,
Oh,
it
it's
was like
terrible.
definitely like almost 90
All
degrees.
the
But
Southerners listening are like, oh, these guys don't know heat, but
yeah, right.
we're not used to it. Okay, it sucks.
We're not anything over 80 degrees, I'm like dying.
Yeah, same here.
But yeah, the puffer shelter was beautiful. It was like you get this amazing view of Mansfield and you wake up for sunset. But when we got there, it was like 90 degrees and there was no water, and it was the height of bug
Oh.
season. So we couldn't like sit. We like set up our bug nets immediately, and we couldn't do anything because there were just so many bugs. It was like what happened was there was like not many bugs in the beginning, and then the heat wave hit and all the flies hatched, and then it didn't rain at
Oh
all for
God.
days. Like for
So
like a
wait, it was
week it didn't
completely
rain.
dry up there?
There was like a small trickle. So we got like a sketchy trickle for like dinner water, but it was sketchy for sure. It was
Yeah.
like one of those things. We kind of knew that. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about Gut Hook
Oh yeah.
plenty,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, Gut Hook definitely gave us like a heads up, so we knew there wasn't gonna be a lot of water, and we like planned for that. But yeah, it was hot and there were a lot of bugs. And I just remember being like, this is a beautiful freaking shelter and I can't relax because I'm being attacked by bugs.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. And there's really not that much, at least the last time I was there, which was, a number of years ago now, but there's really not that much space for like tenting either. So it's like,
Yeah,
even if you want to
yeah.
set up, I guess, you
Well, we
could.
were tarp camping, so
Oh,
that
you,
was its own
oh my,
situation.
oh geez, yeah, the bugs must have been terrible then.
Well, we had bug nets. We definitely had bug nets, but yeah, it was like, yeah, it was hard to chill. Like once you were in your bug net, you like were in it. It was like I'm not leaving for anything.
What were some of your other like favorite like shelters or spots on the trail?
Oh, let me think. I think so. Puffer was definitely one of them. Taft Lodge is always amazing. We met some really, really cool people at Taft Lodge. Am I saying that right? I think
Yep, yep,
so.
you said that right. Don't
Yeah,
and if
and
I say you
then
said it wrong, then I'm probably fucking wrong anyway. So
just ignore that.
yeah.
Sterling Pond Shelter was I anything with water, I remember being like really awesome and like really grateful for that. And then also like a lot of the shelters stick out to me just because of the people that we met. Like we met some really cool people. I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one right before the Camel's Hump Summit. Like there was a really cool caretaker there.
Montclair
Uh,
Glen Lodge, I think it is.
Maybe I don't remember. Yeah, just anything with water was awesome. That's like really what I remember.
Was it that dry?
There
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
damn, that's crazy. I didn't have any water
We were in
issues
the
at
middle
all.
of a drought. Yeah, we definitely like we
In
started out
early
strong.
June too. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it didn't rain for like a week and a half at least.
Damn.
Yeah, and it was just like a wild heat wave. We were like praying for rain. We were
Interesting.
like literally anything, please.
That's not normal for a thru hiker on the East Coast, I feel like.
No, it's not. It's not. And I mean, we were never like we always got water, like enough water, but it was always like
So,
intentional
an
planning.
extra hassle. Yeah, yeah. You gotta
Yeah, we always
carry
had to
it
like
too.
be
It's heavier.
careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all the West Coast hikers are like, oh, boo-hoo, like
Right.
they're so used to that shit. But
Meanwhile, they're drinking
that
out of
is
puddles.
not normal. Like every shelter on the Long Trail is built like to be next to a water source
Yes.
for a lot of those to be dry, to have enough of them be dry that you're like thankful for the ones that weren't. Like that's not
Especially
normal.
in June. Especially in
Yeah,
June.
right.
Yeah.
Especially like early June. Like that's like supposed to be the wettest, like pretty much in the wettest part of the summer. Certainly, like
Yeah. Well, I think I did some Googling about it because I was also confused. And I think it had to do with the fact that we had a really early spring.
really,
And yeah, like spring came really early. So a lot of the water that comes from snow melt
it's
that
just
had
gone
already
already.
like come
Interesting.
through. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
now that
So
I
it was
think
just like
about
a
it,
weird year.
yeah, now that I think about it, I did a hike with Flossie Memorial Weekend, so just couple days before you guys left or whatever. I think you said early. You started, what was it, the 6th? Is that what I heard?
It was like June 5th or 4th, something like
Okay,
that.
so
Yeah.
so early
June.
June. So not that long, before you guys started. And I remember being like pretty surprised at how not muddy the trail was on that hike. I was like, before we went into it, I was like, Flossie, it's gonna be super muddy. Like we just gotta suck it up. Like just it's gonna happen. And it really wasn't that bad. So I guess it has been. I feel like, I've also been over in the Whites for most of my backpacking trips next to like huge rivers. So there's always water there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it has been pretty dry.
Yeah, and I think like it also depends on like when we were down south, when you're lower elevation, there's just like water's always a given, but as soon as you get high enough that you're not in a valley, like
Yeah.
that's when it started to get a little weird.
True. For sure. I'm trying to think of like what some of my other like favorite spots are. What about like the in my opinion, like the northern half of the trail is like so sick. Maybe that's because that's
actually,
where I live, but
yeah.
I don't know.
The coolest part about the northern half of the trail, I think, were all the cabins. Like there were a lot.
Yes, there's so many enclosed shelters. Like those
Yes, that was really magical,
like
honestly.
for Appalachian Trail standards, like the northern half, but even parts of the southern half too. But especially in the northern half, a lot of the shelters are like next level, like fully enclosed cabins that don't get as much traffic too, so they're not quite as trashed, and not that they're usually trashed, but they're just a little bit in better shape, and they're just like like freaking, what is it, Hazen's Notch Camp? Did you stay there at all?
I did stay there.
Such
That was
a sick spot.
awesome.
Such a sick spot.
I'm trying to remember I think it's maybe it's the Laura Woodard section or the Laurels. I don't remember what the section is called, but there's one particular section that I remember is just like so beautiful because of like the cabins, and you like hike all day in like these huge fields of like giant ferns that are like chest high, and it's like not a lot of like mountain views, but a lot of just like really really beautiful like woods of like birch trees and ferns and greenery, and then you like roll into camp and it's this like cute little like magical cabin like tucked away in the woods. It's like fully enclosed. It's like really well kept and clean and pretty. That was really really cool. Like that whole section.
Yeah, like the shelters on the Long Trail are like a big part of why it's so special, I think. And often on my AT thru hike, I would actually just avoid staying at shelters, and I'm sure they were fine. That was more to do with just crowds and stuff.
Right.
But like the shelters, especially on the northern part of the Long Trail, are like so awesome for sure.
Yeah, and that was the section we started to meet more people, and we had like more people to share like shelters with, which is always cool to like make friends at camp. That's like one of the special parts for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. What okay, I ask this question to people sometimes. It's pretty cheesy, honestly, but finishing, how did it feel to finish? What was going through your head?
Oh, I was on top of the world. I felt amazing.
Were you like ready to be done? Were you like...
Yeah, I think when it comes to like the mental game, like I think that when you like expect to be done, you're ready to be done a lot of the times. Like I think on one hand, I was not excited to be done. Like I was like, I'm going back to COVID. Like I'm going back to quarantine. I don't want to be done. I love this. Like I could do this forever. And then on the other hand, I was like, oh, but I'm kind of ready for a shower in my bed. And I really miss my dog. I was like, I really want to hang out with my dog. And I probably experienced like what everybody experienced. Like I think it's like pretty common. Like I felt amazing, like I felt accomplished. I was like, I can say I'm a thru hiker now. And then I was also like, I don't want to be done and I'm ready to be done. Like I'm excited to see my friends and like have more of like, yeah, just like the finer things in life. But also I was like, I also really love hiking and I'm really happy out here and I could do this all the time and like I'm not sick of it. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was definitely like a bittersweet moment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then you had to like leave Vermont. I guess it wasn't right after, but somewhat.
Yeah, I had like a month left. It was like a weird transition period where I was like, I finished a long trail and then I had to transition back to regular life, which a lot of people don't tell you how hard it is to get off the trail and like be back in regular life.
Oh
Like that
yeah.
was, yeah, I would say like the 2 weeks after any like hike or like any like hiking trip is kind of an emotional roller coaster. Like
Oh,
you
for
just have
sure.
like high highs and low lows and you're like, okay, waiting this out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's
um
like I feel like it's people talk about it a lot in terms of like the longer hikes, but a lot of people don't realize that you can definitely get that even after just like a couple weeks, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Those 2 weeks were hard, and then I immediately was like getting ready to move to a new city for school. And like Vermont, I consider to be like my home, so it was like hard to leave for
Yeah.
sure. I was
I'm
like, oh,
sure
I'll
you'll
be
be
back.
back though. I'm sure you'll be
Yeah,
back. Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
No doubt, no doubt.
Um what we're going to get into a story in just a second, but how do you think this experience has like, I don't know, shaped or changed the way you view hiking? AKA, do you think you're going to do another through hike at some point?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I think like I definitely am gonna do another through hike, and I think that what I realized on this hike was that like through hiking is a really, really amazing reset. Like no matter what you're doing, like if I ever am at a point in life where I'm like I just need to like reset and like get back in touch with whatever it is, like myself or like other people or my priorities or my goals, like that's like some like through hiking is a really really cool tool that you can use to completely reset your mindset and your life.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that I'm gonna have in my back pocket as like something that I can do always. I definitely want to through hike again. I think like I've never really been out west, so I think I'm like kind of thinking like maybe after grad school I'll do like the PCT or the CDT or
Yes,
something as
do
like my
it.
first hike. Yeah, that's like honestly what's like in my brain right now. I'm Google about it all the time.
You know Sebastian Mara, right?
Yes, he did the
Yeah,
PCT.
and we hiked the Long Trail together in 2016, so you could follow his trajectory. Yeah, the Long
Yes.
Trail, and then I guess that did a pretty good job of getting him ready for the PCT. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing myself, I like to check things off. So I'm sure I'll do plenty of other things, like other through hikes as well. Like once I start, I think everybody knows that once you start, it's like really hard to stop. Like
Oh yeah,
once you're hooked, you're like always planning your
for
next
sure,
one.
for sure. All right,
Yeah.
let's do a story. So for full transparency here, I forgot to remind Kayla about the story until literally like 10 minutes before we recorded. So I forgot. I've been pretty good about it
No
lately.
pressure.
My
No
regular
pressure at all.
listeners know, like, I forget sometimes. I feel like I've been pretty good about it lately, but I forgot this time. But it sounds like you have a story, yeah, Kayla?
Yeah, I thought of one.
Okay. Okay, let's hear
On the fly.
it.
Yeah. Okay, so craziest hiking story. Actually, this doesn't really have as much to do with like hiking as more of just like backpacking in general.
Sure, sure.
I'm an Adirondack hiker. I have seen a lot of bears, and of course, this story has a bear in it. Um, so this is actually really funny. I was on a backpacking trip with my friend Shane, and it was just like a 4 day trip where we were gonna camp at Lake Colden in the Adirondacks, and just like do day hikes. And it was my dog's first backpacking trip. I remember that too. But we like rolled in, and for some reason I had no idea that Lake Colden is like ridden with bears. Like there's so many bears and they're not afraid of people at all. And I am very afraid of bears. Like they're terrifying to me. Like if I'm like cooking in the woods in the Adirondacks, I'm like never relaxed. I'm always like really stressed out about it. But we were like making our dinner after a day hike, and we like we were making pasta. I remember very clearly. And my friend Shane like looked up and he was like, "Oh my God, there's a bear." And I
Oh,
like
jeez.
immediately like freaked out. And I will say that I probably did not handle the situation well. Like it's not a big deal. Like there's bears, black bears all the time. You shouldn't freak out. I did. And I like had bear spray with me. And the bear was like maybe like 20 feet away, like 15, 20 feet away, like too close for comfort, but not that close.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I like just like picked up my bear spray and I screamed at it for like 10 seconds. It didn't do anything. So then I sprayed it. and it sat down. Like, it did not run away. It just like sat down on its ass and stared at us. And I was like, oh my God, like I sprayed this bear with bear spray. I have nothing bigger than that. So then I got even more stressed, and we like immediately, oh, the side note, we had just gone swimming, so like we were just like not wearing shoes. Like my friend Shane was like literally in his underwear, like not wearing shoes, because we had just swam in Lake Holden. And I like went immediately into like bear mode, and I was like, put everything in the bear can. I was like, close it up, like leave it there, like whatever. And I like picked up the pot of boiling water, and I just like ran down the trail with it.
Oh my
and my
God.
friend was like, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, we need to go somewhere else, like whatever. And we like went back, and he was like, my friend Shane like stopped me, and he was like, Kayla, he was like, can I please go put pants on? Because he was like running down the trail with no shoes and no pants. And I was like, my first reaction, I was like, you're gonna leave me here alone with the food? And he was like, yeah, dude, I need pants.
Gotta have pants.
Yeah, right. So he left me alone with the food. I was very scared. He came back. We like found a bridge or whatever and like ate our dinner. And after we finished eating, he didn't tell me this before, but after we finished eating, he was like, are you done? And I was like, yeah, totally, like take the rest. And he's like, I need to make a confession. And I was like, oh my God, what is it? And he was like, while the bear was there and you were freaking out, he was like, I stepped in the pot of boiling water and my foot was all up in our food, and I didn't tell you till after you ate. So, yeah, that's my crazy bear story.
Were you mad? That's so funny.
No, I was just like, honestly, whatever. Like, we ate our food and the bear's gone now. So I thought
so
it was
funny.
funny. I wasn't that worried about it.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, there's a lot of bears. I feel like I'm the only person who's like never seen a bear in the Adirondacks before.
Oh my God. Well, you're not camping in the right places.
I've done like a pretty
are.
good amount. Yeah, I don't know. I also hardly saw any on the AT or any of my hikes. Bears just don't like me, which is probably a good thing. So
I've seen like 10 in the Adirondacks. I wish that was an exaggeration.
That's like what everybody says. Like every 46er is like, yeah, I saw at least like fucking 10 bear. I'm like, I don't know. But I'm hiking the NPT in a few weeks, so we'll see if I see any. I really hope I don't.
Well, the NPT probably not.
Yeah,
it's
not quite as bad. Yeah, as like the heart of the high peak. So anyways, Kayla, that's going to do it. 6:30 on the dot almost. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And congrats on the LT. I'm really excited to hear about what you do in the future. Do you want to, I know you're not like a big like fucking social media star like me, but no. Wow, so douchey. Do you want to the number one hot new hiking influencer? That is not statistically proven yet, but it will be shortly. Do you want to plug
that's not real? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's a joke. I hate to break to you. People are like, he's not number one. I thought he was like number 10. I don't know.
Fake it till you make it, man. Whatever.
Yeah, that's right. If you say it enough, people will believe it. Yeah, but do you want to plug your Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, if anyone wants to give me a follow, my Instagram is Kayla_adventures_. Very basic, very me. Yeah, you shoot me a follow. I'm always hiking. I also love to like chat with people on Instagram and like talk about what people are doing and like make new friends. So yeah.
There you go.
Definitely don't be shy. Shoot me a follow.
Go follow her. Make her the number 2 hot new hiking influencer.
Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah, give me a run for my money. Okay, cool. Kayla, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody listening. Please go check out 46 Climb stuff. Link in the show notes. And yeah, have a good one, everybody.